Don't let aging joints and muscles hold you back. Red Recover uses red light therapy to help with muscle fatigue, pain relief, and optimal recovery. Use promo code Big O for 10% off your first order.
All right, Matt, let's just start off the segment with a really childish thing. The Eagles have just made a move. They signed a kicker by the name of Cameron Dicker to the practice squad.
Hopefully that works out for them.
I hope so.
I got to leave it at that. Good luck to Cameron.
I hope he's able to penetrate that football through the goalposts.
I'm betting he is too.
Yeah, I mean, well, if he's going to live up to his namesake, I mean, you know, you got to do something like that. You got to be
a tough name. Like in high school, that's a tough name.
Oh, in elementary and junior high,
that's tough.
That's a real tough name.
He might be the toughest kicker in the league because you get in a lot of fights with that name.
Yes, yeah,
you know?
I mean, if you're telling me, you know, once you use it on me and I'm named Dicker, I'm going, yeah, that's what your mom said, you know, and then that's it. And then there's
a lot of fights with that. There's a lot of fights with that name.
It's a lot of fights going on there. All right, so you got a taste there of Mike McDaniel. Yep. Obviously, this whole Tua thing. And just so you'll know where I stand on this, I don't really view this like 99% of the media because I got to think there's a percent that's on my side. I view this completely different. And so I want to know how you view all of this because to me, Thursday had nothing to do with Sunday. And while Sunday was a mistake because he looked like he was concussed, we all thought, but then he comes back and he throws the kill shot and he plays. And that's the thing about these concussions, dude. They're all different. One guy could be out for a week or 3 months. You know, you're old enough. Eric Lindros, every time he had a concussion, it got worse and worse and worse. Yep. Steve Young, every time he got a concussion, he was out longer and longer and longer. So for some people, you're out for a long time. You know, Jordan Reed, former Florida tight end, bounced around the league a bit. He might have had 10 or 11 reported concussions.
He had a lot. Yep.
He had a lot, and he kept playing. You know what I mean? So they're all different. So here's my point to all of this. And I'm going to ask Tua, I've said this many times already in the last week, when he has his next press conference, I'm going to be front and center asking him this because I got to blame him, dude. I do. I got to blame him. And here's the reason why. You go back to the hip injury at Alabama, it's two fat guys catching him because he's playing hero ball instead of getting rid of the ball. And by the way, that when they caught him, he was way outside of the tackle box already at that point. Refused to get rid of the ball. There goes his hip. Now he's got that. One of his two ankle injuries, I looked it up. I saw it. Again, hero ball hanging on. Week 1 against the Patriots this year. He tried hero ball a couple times, trying to keep a play alive, almost either turned over the ball or got himself injured. Well, on Thursday night, he was playing fine, dude. He made some excellent throws. He had the bad interception. He got a little cocky. Okay, fine. But overall, he was fine. His problem was, Matt, when he got sacked, that was the 5-second mark. You know, and you're getting sacked by a fat guy. And as I've said before, if you have Baker Mayfield athleticism, because he can't outrun a drunk cop. So if you have that kind of athleticism, get rid of the football, young man. Most of your injuries and hell that you've gone through, it's because you continue to play hero ball. And that's the one thing that for a quarterback of his size, you know, I was terrified of Kyler Murray coming into the league. Not because I don't think he's a passer. I actually think he's a passer. I like him as a passer. I think he's got the skill set. But my problem was, oh, dude, that guy can't take a hit. But he's got that Warwick Dunn skill. You don't get clean hits on him. Like Barry Sanders, you don't get clean hits. Tua does not have the gift of Russell Wilson or Kyler Murray to have those wheels. So I know it's difficult to blame him for this right now, but yeah, the doctors failed him, whatever, the NFL failed him. I'll go with all of that. But on Thursday night, he failed himself, and he's got to stop doing that because that's what's brought on the major problems in his career.
He holds on to the ball at times. I mean, that I think is just, you can watch the game and see that, but I can't get to where I blame him for what happened in that game. Like at some point, now look, let's also say we talked last Wednesday, the day before the game, and we were not sitting here saying like he should not play on Thursday night. I am not a doctor. Like the one thing I'm not going to do is sit up here and say, well, I knew that he had a concussion. Like, look, when he got hit by Matt Milano against Buffalo, it looked like he had a head injury. I mean, he got up, he's holding his head, he's wobbly. I mean,
never touch his back, touched his
back. I mean, for all the world, it looks like he's got a head injury. Okay. And then the Dolphins initially classified it as he has a head injury. And then it became, no, he doesn't have a head injury. He has a back injury. He also has an ankle injury, and he's questionable for Thursday night. Okay. Now, whether or not he has a back and an ankle injury, I have no idea. Okay. I'm not on the medical staff. I don't know. What I do know is when you have a concussion like he had on Thursday night, and you have that fencing response, which is like an automatic neurological response. To me, at some point, then it becomes, okay, look, where does it go from here? Like that to me now, like the NFL is going to do its investigation. NFLPA is involved. And by the way, I have zero faith in the NFL to do this investigation properly. So, I mean, we'll see how that goes. And the NFLPA, the same thing, by the way. Their own members don't think they'll do the investigation properly. So I don't expect this to be a real hammer-down investigation. What's more interesting to me at this point is, you hope he just can come back and he's okay, and it just doesn't become a thing where he's concussed all the time.
Right.
But the other question I have right now is, when does he play again? I mean, the Dolphins came out and immediately ruled him out. I was listening to McDaniel's presser, and he said, well, it's not about optics, but he had a long pause, and he kind of like went around. Well, let's be honest. It's somewhat about optics at this point.
Optics.
I mean, come on. Let's just call a spade a spade. Of course, part of it's optics. Of course it is. Like the reality now, look, I don't think he's going to play whether they rolled him out Monday or Saturday. But the point is, they rolled him out immediately because they didn't want that conjecture around it all week long. And I get that. But now it becomes like, how long does he miss? Like 1 or 2 weeks? Does he miss 1 or 2 months? When you look at what happened to him Thursday night, my feeling is that was a failure across the board. The independent doctors didn't do their job. The team doctors don't appear to have done their job. I get less on McDaniel.
Or maybe they all did their jobs because the protocols were weak.
Well, and I was just about to say,
because to me, that's really what, because that doctor's nothing more than a fall. It's a Chris Carter
he's a fall guy. He's a fall guy because he's not affiliated with the team, and he's the easiest guy to fire. And
now,
so
here's what I've said, Matt. If there's real, what we call in the medical business malpractice,
right?
Well, then when I see a lawsuit, then I'll believe this bullshit. But meanwhile, all I believe is that this is just a PR thing. So the NFL tries to cover up their mess up because obviously their protocols weren't good enough because the doctor said, hey, I followed all the protocols. The guy passed the protocols. Did you watch him play in the second half? He went out and balled out. What do you want me to do? And these are the protocols you set. And I went, well, you shouldn't have let him back in because he was wobbly. Give me a break, dude. You've got T. Higgins in the game after 2 concussions leading into that game.
Well,
now the JJ Watt thing came out that he had to restart his heart on a Tuesday to play on a Sunday. I mean, give me a break, dude. It happened all over the damn league. Cameron Brate was knocked out and came right back.
I was literally just going to say Cameron Brate's name. So, yeah, look, I agree with you. Like the protocol in theory is great, but nobody applies it the way it needs to be applied, or very few teams apply it the way it needs to be applied. You're right. Like, look, I remember a game, this was a handful of years ago. I remember Matt Moore in a playoff game with the Dolphins against Pittsburgh.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
I mean, go look it up on YouTube for people. I'm sure it's the first thing you'll see with Matt Moore. He got rocked. Like, I thought he might have been dead. He missed one play. They put him right back on the field. And, of course, I'm sure a bunch of people in this chat will remember it from Miami. I mean, he got killed and that came right back out there. And I'm not indicting Miami. That was a totally different group of people.
No, it's just the league.
It happens all the time.
Yes.
It happens all the time.
And by the way, most of these guys want to come back too. And this is why JJ Watt.
Players need to be kept from themselves.
The world wants to keep JJ Watt out, but JJ Watt wants to play. And this is the other problem I have with all of this. They all know the risks. They all know the risks, and they want to do this.
But the players need to be safe from themselves. Like, that is the way the business works. Let's be real. They need to be safe from themselves. Look,
do we save cops from going out on the street every day and putting their lives on the line?
I got a bunch of family who are cops.
Do we save firemen from going into burning buildings?
Tell you what, though.
We hand a 20-year-old the rifle, and he says, go defend our country.
Okay.
Do we stop FP&L guys from working on wires? Do we stop?
The NFL is different than my buddy who's a cop who decided not to put his seatbelt on in a pursuit.
But you decided to play a game that is brutal that you could end up with.
But that's why safeguards are in place for these. Now the teams have to utilize them. Look, let's also say this: the Tua stuff is happening for more than normal for two reasons. He's a quarterback, and it was on national television. Okay, yeah. If he's a tight end like Cameron Braid is, all right, now that was on national TV. But he's a tight end, and it wasn't. Look, the other part of it with Tua, I should actually say three reasons. It was a jarring visual thing.
Yes,
he's on the ground, and Amazon kept the camera on him for about 5 seconds of him basically looking like he's seizing up on the field. Yeah. There's a lot of components to this that all goes down. Again, my thing is we know what's happened. We know that there are investigations. We'll see how that all plays out. Again, I don't have a ton of faith in the league or the union. What's curious now to me is how does it go from here? What do they do now? Right? Like,
well, you saw what happened this weekend for show. Like right away, they pulled anybody and everybody that got rocked. Now, that's what's going to happen. And now players and coaches are going to be pissed about this secretly. They may not be saying it publicly, but they're going to be pissed about this secretly because guys will miss games, guys will miss their incentives, guys will, this is, and this is where we kind of cross a line of, yeah, you want to protect them, but it's their right. Well, they chose to do this. They want to do this,
but they have to play by the NFL. It is, but the NFL has safeguards in place they have to adhere to. That's the problem. Like this isn't 1975 anymore, where like Ken Stabler can go out and get 4 concussions and just keep rolling. Like they have rules, but again, like there's a lot of things. Like there's a nuanced conversation to have about this. The reality is, anytime a guy looks like he has a concussion, he shouldn't go back in the game. Period. This is also the NFL, and I'm not going to kid myself. Guys go back in games all the time. I mean, I have been in locker rooms. I have worked alongside former NFL players. My podcast, Stack the Box, Jeff Schwartz used to co-host with me for years. Look, I know many NFL players, both just as people I've gotten to know over the years and people who I've covered in games. And there are times when, either you're in a locker room, you look at a guy and you're like, that guy doesn't look right. Or you're talking to somebody who's been retired for 10 years and they're like, man, I can tell you story after story after story of guys who like literally have no recollection of games because they've just been knocked cold in the first quarter of a game and they go back and play. I think the NFL has gotten better, but the NFL's got miles to go. And you have to protect these guys against themselves because let's face it, they're athletes. They're wired to just say, if I can stand up, I'm going to play. Yeah. And you have to protect these men against themselves or they're going to go back in there and you're going to have what happened on Thursday night more and more often.
Yeah. The only problem is that they don't want to protect themselves more often than not because they're looking to win the game. You're right. The coaches need them in order to win the game. And they have no problem whatsoever sacrificing their bodies because that is a way that they show how much they care for their teammates. They love the game, that they're, it's just this whole machismo thing that falls with it. And you can't take it out of that game. Once you take that out of the game's done, by the way. You know what I'm saying?
It's just, listen, I don't disagree with you. I'll tell you, actually, so
dynamic. It's a crazy because listen, then what are we gonna do? So do you force JJ Watt to sit out this past week? Because it's his choice. Because dude, the rest of us try to go in and get our hearts, back on rhythm. People are saying, hey, why don't you relax for a couple of days before you even go to work and sit behind a computer, much less go play in the NFL. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you.
That's the part I have a problem with because millions of people all over the world have chosen to work in jobs. The miner wants to go into that mine every single day and breathe all that shit every day, which he's not going to live for longer than the rest of us, but he chose to do that. You know what I'm saying? There are risks. I've said this for years. It hasn't happened, but I thought for sure after all this concussion stuff, I thought it was going to die out and I was wrong. But there's a part of me that says one day the waiver is going to come out and the NFL and the players are going to go, here, sign the waiver. You guys can't sue us ever again for any injuries. You know how brutal this game is. We know how brutal this game is. The money's here to make it, but we're not going to stand for any more lawsuits because there's no way we can really protect you because in this game, there really is no way to protect you because It's not your second concussion. It doesn't matter. All the first injuries will have effects for you for years to come, and maybe post-career it might be terrible. So that's
there's no arguing that the NFL from now until they stop playing the game will be a brutal, violent sport. And yes, the equipment's like I always hear people say, well, the equipment's a lot better than it was in the 80s. Yeah, but guys also run a 4.3 that are 265 pounds. Like there's a yin yang to that. Like, look, I've been on the sideline for games. I've been, when I was in college, I interned at ESPN and I worked basically as somebody who got Emmitt Smith coffee. Okay. I was on the sideline for some Monday Night Football games. Let me tell you something. You're down that close and those guys hit each other. It literally sounds like a car crash. I mean, it is unbelievable. I remember the first game I ever covered. It was, in fact, I got the press thing right over me. 2007. Monday night, the Bills are playing Dallas. It's a home game for Buffalo. Marshawn Lynch is the running back. And he takes a toss toward the sideline. I was standing on Dallas' sideline. Toward the sideline. I think it was Brady James. Brady James crushed Marshawn Lynch. I thought he killed him. Marshawn Lynch popped up like he tripped over a blade of grass and said a bunch of things I can't say to him, but was like laughing as he's going back to the huddle.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe he got up. Like it was nothing. It was nothing to these guys. So look, it's always going to be a brutal
superhuman, bro. They're superhuman.
They are in a lot of ways. But I do think, look, the NFL can legislate violence out of the game all it wants. At the end of the day, you have huge men hitting huge men at high speeds, at awkward angles, and you've got to be able to have the guts as a league to say, look, if a guy's got a concussion, he's not coming back, and we need to adhere to that. Now, the problem is you can sit there and say you have an independent team doctor all you want. That guy's on the sideline with about 80 guys, players, coaches, executives who are not unaffiliated team personnel, okay? And there is an inherent pressure with that to be, hey, Doc, can our quarterback come back in? Because if he can't, we're going to lose this game.
Right.
That's reality. So I do think there needs to be some change, but I'm also not naive enough to think that this is ever just going to go away. It's not going to go away because you have millions of dollars on the line for both the teams and the players.
Billions, not millions anymore.
Oh, yeah, that's true. You throw a B on that now, right? So
yeah, I mean, no more M's, buddy. No more M's. It's
right,
all
M's were 2 decades ago. Forgive me.
Yes,
but
they're all B.
Yeah, it's what it is.
And that's why I just don't think you get it. And we have to. It's a fine line. Yeah, you want to protect them from themselves, but I think you also want to give them their rights because you want the game, right? Well, they want to play. They want to make their money, and the sacrifices are there. And unfortunately, the sacrifices are made not just in football, in so many other walks of life. You're sacrificing something, Hell, my wife is a teacher. She's completing her 30th year this year.
Awesome.
She has sacrificed brain cells. That woman, yeah, I'm serious. There isn't a teacher in the world that comes out the same they went in after they deal with 200 kids every year for 30 years, bro. Are you serious? You know what I'm saying? So there are sacrifices to be made in everything overall, So hell, teachers now have to worry about guns in classes and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. It's even worse now. So I just worry a little bit about taking the rights away from people at times too. And I think that's something that, you gotta walk a fine line because plenty of people risk as much or even more than NFL players in some of their walks of lives. And they have chosen that route. So that's the only thing that I do say, okay, we got to protect them. But wait a minute. They know what the risks are. They know the money they're making. That's why they're taking these kind of risks. It's the kind of money that you and I would never make. You know what I mean? And some of us that could make that money, some of us would take the same kind of risks. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, it's just one of those deals. I think personally, by the way, he's going to come back because he has proven to be a quick healer overall.
How quickly do you think? Like, if I give you the over/under at 4 weeks, would you take the over or the under?
Oh, the under. He's coming back for the Pittsburgh game. Wow. Mark it down. He'll miss this game. Then the media gets their fluff pieces. Teddy Two Gloves against his former team, the Vikings. Then he plays the Steelers. That's 24 days off.
Right,
beautiful optics. Beautiful optics. You got 24 days off now. You've missed your 2 games. Now he comes back and he kicks Flo's ass. So yes, and the storyline is perfect. Tua's going to want to come back to beat Flo's ass with the Steelers. So I just feel like this is what I've sensed from, and he came back in the Buffalo game when he was concussed in the first half. You know what I'm saying? So for me, this kid he came back in 10 months from a hip injury. I mean, that's amazing. Who the hell ever thought by the combine he was working out? And we're like, what the hell is this?
I remember talking to him at the combine. So yes,
yeah. That's ridiculous. Late November and you're at the combine already. This kid is a warrior. Okay. He will come back very quickly from this because he's one of those kind of guys. Not everybody's like that. Everybody's different. We have a tight end right now on the roster, Ethan Carter, probably going to miss the 4th week in a row with a concussion. Everybody's different, man. Everybody's different. But that dude, I don't know, man. Somehow or another, he bounces back from everything that he suffers. Everything. It's weird.
Right now, from a football perspective, I mean, look, I think Teddy Bridgewater will play fine. He's a backup quarterback, but he's one of the best backups in the league.
Yeah.
So they should beat the Jets with Teddy Bridgewater. And then the Vikings. That's one of those games. Okay,
that'll be tough. That'll be tough. Yeah, and you just heard no Byron Jones and X is hurt, so Thielen and company are going to be a pain in the ass to stop.
Minnesota's a weird team. Minnesota is the NFC's answer to the Chargers. They can beat anybody in the league on a given week and can lose to anybody. Like, it just depends what version of Kirk Cousins you get, what version of that defense you get, like that. So, look, if you're the Dolphins, just say, listen, we got to beat the Jets because who cares for that games, and you should win that game. Get to 4-1, and then you know what? Even if you were to drop the Minnesota game, after that, the schedule's not hard. Pittsburgh is a bottom 3 team in the league. Pittsburgh stinks. Yeah, okay, and then after that, I know, is it Cleveland? I know Cleveland's like right.
Yeah, they got a bunch of winnable games. With Tua, they're all winnable games.
So they should
without Tua, it's pulling teeth for everything. Here's what I think, Matt. This is where you test Mike McDaniel. You tested him in the Ravens series with adversity. They came back. Okay, now you've got the adversity of not your starting quarterback. So now you've got more of a game manager. Well, now your creative offensive mind that everybody talks about, here's where it needs to matter over the next couple of weeks when Tua is out. You need to give your players, systematically an advantage in certain plays so they can go out. You have plenty of playmakers, right? Find a way to get them out in the open field and let them fly around and do their thing. So for me, this is a nice test for McDaniel as a head coach. Look, dude, I grew up with Shula, bro. He freaking got Woodstock, which is David Woodley and Don Strock's Super Bowl. Doug Peterson won his 325th game. Yes. He would win games.
He got Scott Mitchell a lot of money.
He got Scott Mitchell. He won with backup quarterbacks. When the other guys weren't healthy, he would find somebody else and get by. I need to see you. See, this is, by the way, and one of our listeners brought this up to me about Belichick, where the shine has to come off a little bit, because he goes to me, well, Shula won with Unitas, and he won with Greasy, and he won with Marino. He went to the Super Bowl with Woodstock. So he did it with all kinds of people. Joe Gibbs won 3 championships with 3 different quarterbacks. Bill Walsh, while the second championship that was won with Seifert, it was really Walsh that set all that stuff up, and he would have ended up winning the same championship overall. For me, Seifert is Switzer, picking up Jimmy's 3rd championship, that kind of stuff. So Belichick needs to show us that he can have success with another quarterback not named Tom Brady. It's not because the whole GOAT thing or whatever, but some of that shine will come off if you can't have success with somebody else. So McDaniel, not saying that you got to go win a championship with Teddy Bridgewater or something, but for now, show us that you can keep things afloat. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. Look, they by the way, Belichick's not having any success this year with these quarterbacks. But look, they are not good. But yeah, I do agree.
He has not been good. Let's call it like you see it. His personnel decisions have been a disaster.
That's what's killing them.
Right, and Brady was his ultimate Band-Aid, bro. Ultimate Band-Aid.
He has not been a good GM. Look, no, I think with McDaniel, like this has to be a game coming up here where you basically just sit down with Teddy Bridgewater and say, look, we're going to scheme guys open underneath. Just throw it underneath. Don't make a big mistake. Like we should be able to handle Zach Wilson and the Jets. Like just throw the ball underneath. And look, every once in a blue moon, we'll take a shot play. And it's got to be one of those things where if you're going to throw it, you throw it in a spot where our guy can get it or nobody can get it. And if it's 3 yards over his head, fine. Don't worry about it. Just don't get it picked off and have the guy run it back 60 yards. So I think if you're now, I will say I was encouraged with the way they called the game with Bridgewater against Cincinnati. I thought they had some creativity. Bridgewater, give him credit. He aired it out to Tyreek. Now Hill made a great catch, but he was more throwing. But this is one of these games. You're not playing a team that you have to empty the bag for. Like this should be a game where it's like, all right, look, we can play it safe, and maybe we don't blow them out, but we win the game. Also, this is a game, and McDaniel talked about this in the presser. They need to run the ball a little better in this game.
Yes.
Like you need to get into these 2nd and 5s and 3rd and 2s, and like that's the one way you get in trouble in this game. If you can't run and everything's 2nd and 9 and 3rd and 8, because then you run the risk of Bridgewater having to force a ball somewhere where he doesn't want to throw the football. But if they can stay ahead of the sticks, or even with the sticks, I think they're fine. But McDaniel is going to have to scheme it up a little bit.
I'm with you there. All right. Tell them about Stacking the Box, my man. What are you working on?
Always. So we got the quarterback rankings out today. Had the power rankings out yesterday. Stacking the Box. The podcast goes up every Tuesday at noon Eastern on YouTube. Check out the Stacking the Box podcast channel. And then also the column, Stacking the Box, goes up every Monday morning, covers the entire league from the weekend that was. So there's plenty of picks go out Thursday. And always have 2 or 3 features as well, previewing some of the league's biggest games of the week. So plenty of stuff to check out at Fansided or on my Twitter feed, which you can see the handle on the screen.
Yeah, and by the way, another offensive struggle for your Chiefs this week.
They decided not to bet on the other team's money line this week and just play football. That worked out a little better.
Yeah, they look good this week. They were
okay.
They did their job. Mahomes put on a nice little show. That little flip in the end for the touchdown, that was just absolutely beautiful.
Even for him, that was pretty good.
Yeah, that was great. That was just fantastic. His awareness is just that's what makes a great quarterback. Yeah, sure, the plays, the athleticism, the arm, all that other stuff, but his awareness of where he's at and what he has to do and where everybody's at, to me, that's what also makes him so good. You know, and that one play there where he's dodging a guy, faking another guy out, and then shot putting the ball for a touchdown. Dude, that's the crap you can't teach.
In 2 weeks, week and a half, actually, to be accurate, it'll be him and Josh Allen at Arrowhead, and that'll be an interesting game. If you're a fan of quarterback play, that's the game for you. That'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, that's going to be a hell of a game. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, Matt. Appreciate you as always. We'll catch up next week, my friend.
Sounds good. Take care.
Yes, sir. There you go. We step out of the huddle.